Yes, Nigerians in South Africa have been subjected to attacks. Shops have been looted, businesses shut down, and of course, lives have been destroyed too. And locals have taken to the street demanding that illegal migrants should return to their country because they have come to take over their economic landscape, taking over jobs, straining the lean resources they're having in that particular country. And this has raised concerns on the need to step up effort to tackle this issue. What issue are we talking about? Xenophobic attack on Nigerians in South Africa. And so this will be our focus in this week's edition of Midweek Connect. I am Udrakobong Achibong, and as usual, co-hosted with Ifoma Okafo. Thank you so much. Later continues. Yes, but you know that when we have issues like this, Midweek Connect is a program we do bring in guests to share their thoughts, to explain to us whatever we bring to the table, to educate, inform the public on certain issues. And as far as we're concerned, for this week's edition, we have a guest here, a public affairs analyst, and of course he comes around once in a while to be part of this program. He's Dr. Okonzoa Osawal. You're welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure having you around to share your thoughts. You're a friend of the station. We appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for coming. And of course, we have what to talk about this morning: xenophobic attacks on Nigerians in South Africa. Now, we know that it's not something that is just happening now. It's been occurring. People talk about 2019, 2006, ever since they had issues in some years back.
2008.
Yes, it's kept coming from time to time. And we begin to wonder, why do we keep having this? We know that Nigeria and South Africa have bilateral relations, and they do talk of what each country can benefit from the other and all that, but we keep having it. What are your thoughts on these recurring attacks?
Yeah, well, I do know you have to encapsulate your topic so that it will not be too broad.
Exactly. So you just have to start from
on account of
on
that.
A layman's understanding of what
xenophobia.
Yes,
attack.
We'll get to that. But this is NTA. You're talking about Nigerians.
Yes, we are
But
involved.
the xenophobic attack in South Africa is not primarily targeted at Nigerians. Zimbabweans, Malawians, other Africans are also victims. We have to establish that.
Yes.
I concede it to you. A Nigerian station will probably focus on Nigeria. Well, xenophobia, the very simple definition is a fear of strangers. Some people will say irrational fear of strangers, but I will be very shy of emphasizing the word irrational.
Okay.
Yeah, because it is true that human beings are not pure packets of reason, but that notwithstanding, we are not also completely bestial. We do have our motivations. Our impulses generally can be explained, if not totally, but reasonably. Your background statement, you mentioned competing for resources, and even the South Africans themselves have been very, very clear about what they are up to. So they talk about the children of Nigerian migrants competing with their own children for school spaces, hospitals. Those are the places I've actually gone to, and some residential quarters feel have been colonized by Nigerians. Really, studies have been done on this, especially people who specialize in the field of sociometry. Have done that. It's not only about South Africa alone, even in our own country here, for instance, when elements that can be defined as the older group, they grow in number and influence and so on, human passion begins to manifest. And in the case of South Africa, don't forget about their background, where they are coming from, their political history. They have, even now, there is a lot of soul searching about what political arrangement they should have, the issue of land, how they are going to get the land back, the Afrikaners or the white in South Africa account for just about 10% or so of the population. Upon that, they have ownership of 80% of the fertile land in South Africa. So debates are going on, and having foreigners, of course, Nigerians with their entrepreneurial spirit, where we begin to add, we talked about human passion, envy, and all those ones. But generally, the South Africans feel they have been left behind, and the beneficiaries are Nigerians and other people who have come into their country as economic migrants. We do move, people move, but I think it's actually the number that they generally find overwhelming.
And then we see a situation, because when I listened to a particular report talking to the South Africans, they said they don't have a government. They have decided to take it upon themselves to do it. I really wonder, it's not something that should have been targeted at migrants over there. Maybe it's something that they would have targeted at the government to say, this is our grievances, look at it, there are laws of the land, let's follow it. Why then target it at the people of the land instead of telling focusing on government to come to do it? Is it that government has missed it at this point in time to address the people? Or
there can be a disconnect between the government and society, and that is not peculiar to South Africa. I'm not here defending them. We're just discussing things impersonally. And the government of South Africa, in fact, their formal institutions have spoken out. Even the leader of one of the opposition parties, the EFF, Julius Malema, has been very, very vocal about that, trying to exhort his countrymen to be tolerant of Africans, going as far as saying colonial borders are artificial, that those borders were the creations of the white people who came to Nigeria on their colonial adventure and all that. Malema has gone that far. The government of South Africa has gone that far. Their president has also spoken out about it. The disconnect between society and government can create that particular gap. And of course, if you are talking about the government at the end of the day, because government has to operate formally, government has to be guided by law. It's the Nigerians or other economic migrants in South Africa that are there officially, because most people are there. Even the Nigerian High Commission in South Africa is not aware of their presence. So it's actually those who are there legally that can enjoy
the benefits,
the protection of the government. Even the protection, in a sense, we want to be very, very strict. Protection of the Nigerian High Commission in South Africa, because if I went to South Africa, I'm not listed as a resident of South Africa. The Nigerian Commission is not aware I'm there. Nobody ever gave me papers to come to South Africa and so on. I think I would probably just be existing in no man's land. Nobody knows about my whereabouts there officially.
Okay, so Doc, how do you see this now playing out when you talk about diplomatic ties? So how does it, do you think it will affect relationship of South Africa, Nigeria, and of course other African countries that are also affected by this?
Our former governor or the senator representing the donor spoke on the floor of the Senate recently. We were talking about very harsh measures, retaliatory measures. They're talking about
pulling out
Nigeria, yes, and so on.
And review the bilateral ties.
Well, yes, that's the kind of headline, but he was speaking in a nationalistic mode. There are many views. Before this time, I think the last wave of this xenophobia, people actually said MTN and ShopRite in particular, those corporate entities should exit Nigeria or forced to exit Nigeria because they draw a lot of benefits from us. MTN, for instance, I think Nigeria is their most fertile market.
Of course. So considering the population of Nigeria,
most of these people in South Africa who feel excluded and they are taking it out on foreigners, they are not properly schooled.
Exactly.
They are not skilled. They are actually left on the margins. In fact, most of these things you could say have derived from apartheid government in South Africa. Apartheid ended in '94.
Yes.
When first post-apartheid president Nelson Mandela took over. But there are a lot of issues that accumulated before the end of apartheid have remained. The issue of housing, the issue of education, the issue of healthcare, and so just like other societies, other countries.
Yes.
But these people, because they are angry, they are taking it, they believe, apart from their government, for instance, that the ANC has been losing share of popular vote in successive elections.
Okay.
You know, what was thought unthinkable, people have begun to entertain now, that the other political parties, for the Democratic Alternative, for instance, Africa, the DA, generally peopled by the whites, you know, they have been eating into the majority hold of the ANC. Is it possible that the white people will take over again democratically? It's a question that is being entertained by some people at this stage. So a lot of things going on in South Africa currently. It's like society that has a lot of volatility. There are so many unresolved issues, and of course, when you have issues of this kind, is the foreigner as your
you take it out on the
it's not a new thing. Even in Germany of old, you know, Hitler's Germany, for instance, that was how the Jews came to be victimized before 6 million or thereabout perished. You know, there was supposed to be they say because of the repercussions of the First World War in Europe. Of course, Germany was defeated, and they were supposed to be paying some kind of reparation, and so they were under intense pressure economically. And then Hitler was able to persuade his countrymen that the problems they had in the country were due to the nefarious activities of the Jews. And of course, it became easy targets. Of course, not only the Jews, other people, but there were other people were minority, like the Gypsies and the rest of them. So it happens whenever there is tension in any place, even our own local place here. For most people, when there is tension, you see where we are now. You remember that I'm not an Igbo person, or I'm not a Yoruba person.
The weak and the vulnerable will now be,
especially when you have access to formal instruments.
Yes.
So what is going on in South Africa is not new.
So Doc, if you should say that, so what's happened if there are local people that are not exposed and are not unskilled? So what do you think the African Union should do at this time?
Well, I think African Union, I don't want to sound critical of African Union, but African Union should, maybe through its peer review mechanism,
because when you consider it with Europeans, you know, when this kind of thing is happening, it seems, African Union is not really, they're not coming together to now say
African Union is a voluntary association of independent countries.
Can't they just let their voice?
Well, morally, but more than that, the utmost they can do, as I was about to say, through peer review mechanism, maybe persuade or encourage their component government to uphold actively pursue good governance. Because even in Nigeria and South Africa now, most of them are not there on adventure. They're not there on holiday. They're not there on a picnic. They are there because there is a gradient between Nigeria and South Africa in terms of livelihood and other social amenities.
Alright, let's look at it this way. Nigerians are there protesting. We saw the protests on the street by locals. They were like, leave. I think some Nigerian shops, like one Nigerian that came on air to speak, he said many of them cannot go out because their shops were looted, and they said they had to even stand by hospitals to check if you are going for anything and all that, your identity and all that, whether you are qualified to visit such places. So do you see it as a point that what is South Africa government not doing that is coming up? What are they supposed to do?
What you have mentioned now, they are just manifestations and consequences. Just the way.
Is it an indictment on government that there is something that South African government isn't doing that they're supposed to do?
We just agreed that South Africa is going to be concerned formally, and of course South Africa has to govern its own space, has to make sure what is going on now is curtailed. There won't be violence on the streets and so on. But South Africa has its own problems, Don't they see South Africa is the world headquarters of rape and other things? they have their own social pathologies.
So do you feel that at this point in time, Nigerians in South Africa feel that they are adequately protected or supported?
No.
When it has come to things like
that? Of course not. That is media reports tell us, even international media, they tell us that, you know, and it's just a wave. It's been happening before, and it's going to happen subsequently. Our best bet would be to make Nigeria hospitable or inhabitable,
to reduce the,
you know, because and of course I will tell you, there are other Nigerians that are highly sought after by South Africans. Our high profile academics, we're talking about brain drain again, and another local problem with But in spite of these issues of South Africans molesting Nigerians on the streets and so on, South Africans is still actively seeking different sectors of Nigerians.
Of course.
They seek medical doctors, they seek nurses, they seek university academics and so on. You know, their top profile universities, you see Nigerians there.
Why do you keep having this attack? Because on what you said, you said that the illegal migrants, the undocumented ones,
undocumented,
yes. There are too many in the country.
Well, it's convenient. It's convenient to talk about.
And they are talking of them equally looking up to us to come over and help them one way or the other. Now do we marry the two?
I just told you, the ones they feel will be useful to them are welcome. The ones they feel have get crashed, they feel should go. So the segmentation is very clear. It's clear to them. Don't also forget that this thing is not peculiar to South Africa. Though we were not violent when it happened in the 80s. You know, our neighbors, in fact, our twin, Ghana, in the 80s, we actually asked them to go, and this is they were called people whose stay in Nigeria was not regularized. That's another word for undocumented. We call them illegal aliens that time, and so on. So it's not peculiar to South Africa. It's just the mood of any country at any particular point in time. South Africa happens to be, if you're talking about Africa as a dark spot, South Africa seems to be a real light. You know, of course, their political history cannot be wished away. What apartheid did in South Africa, the memories are still there. But just like you have in any situation, you also have certain countervailing forces that are pleasant. You know, on account of the presence of the white people there, on account of their technology, their general know-how, South Africa before this time was actually deemed to be an extension of Europe, not geographically but culturally, and really? Of course, yes, though you had it's only now people have also say decay has set in South Africa. So around that 1990 backwards and so on, South Africa was a well-developed place.
Okay, so Doc, now looking at this, you know, we're talking about Africa, you know, some time ago, you know, you gave an example of Nigeria, you know, when Ghana must go, now South Africa, and once in a while, Ghana also, you know, came up with this issue. So how does the, you know, other continents look at Africa, you know, as a continent, as talking about based on the international relationship now?
Of course they will despise Africa. There's no doubt about it. They feel Africa and Africans are messy. They feel they are going to be our savior. We're talking about xenophobic attack. Now there's another wave of colonialism now, not just by the European countries. China is also in force on the African continent now. So that is why people of good conscience usually say the solution ultimately is for us to have good governance on the African continent. We have to evolve leaders who are patriotic enough in their respective countries. I beg your pardon, yes. Who are patriotic enough in their respective countries. Well, you can be poor and still live in dignity.
Exactly.
You can be poor and do an efficient husbandry of whatever scant resources you have. You know, so many problems that beset us in Africa. Corruption, corruption mainly now. Corruption mainly because what is going on in South Africa now? What Nigerians has been exposed to South Africa it may not just be kind of economy alone. If I believe my locality in Nigeria, where I was born, is besieged, we have waves of attack, and I'm about to escape the country, I probably would choose a country that would be better than Nigeria, if whose conditions of living are better than what I'm used to.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, except maybe the person had no alternative at all, because Nigeria itself is a kind of Eldorado to most West Africans.
Of course. Gambia.
No, we very forget about you. Talking about Mali, talking about Burkina Faso.
Sierra Leone.
Yes, Nigeria is a kind of Eldorado to them. So when Nigerians are living, they have to also look for a place that has an edge.
Exactly. Yes, it's true. Okay, so when you look at the segment of people there that are being attacked, you know, you find out that the age gap, the age bracket, now they are youths. So does it mean that Nigeria is not providing enough employment for youths?
I think that's why
they're having that brain
we are all agreed on that. That
corruption. That's why I wanted you to, you know, itemize some of
it's not about any particular government at the time. Say the federal government led the APC at federal level now, or the APC at the state. No,
it's not, because since 2008
these are recent governments.
Yeah, this recent government was not there in 2008.
They are not even done their first term. So of course I am not speaking for any government or any political party.
Yeah.
For us, we are not able to evolve the culture of public service.
Okay.
The gains we had from the colonial government, they left very good things here. Of course, they were not invited. They came here by force and by deceit. But they left certain things. Our schools were functional. Our hospitals were functional, and so on and so forth. You know, look a very good example for me all the time. Relation is 92 years old, 92 years old this year. So to win a Nobel, it's not a joke. It's the quality of education he had, and he was here in Nigeria. Even his countryman, fellow countryman, Chinua Achebe, blessed memory, he was here in Nigeria. He was raised here.
Even recently, Chimamanda Adichie has not stopped.
Yes. So, well, that one, Chimamanda Adichie, mother registrar, father professor, that was a kind of micro environment. But again, it's embedded in Nigeria.
Excellent.
So, Nigeria was once good. It's certainly hard to return to those days. That would be our challenge to even surpass those days. What were the regime of Awolowo in the Western region? It's a classical example. Even the white people, especially our colonial masters, the Britons, they marveled at what he did, because it's about development. So we must evolve that culture. Where we're able to meet our needs or even surpass our needs, and create brighter prospects for those who are going to come after us. You know, because what it seems is that we tend to be regressing. And it's not a matter for government alone. Even our own attitude. You know, if you were talking about relationship of a citizen to the government, if you were going to liken it to something vertical, okay, but our horizontal relationships are also poor. The way we treat ourselves, the way we hold ourselves to ransom, and so on. Even some people can leave Nigeria because of that.
Yes.
All right, let's look at it. Over the years, when we keep having this xenophobic attack, how would you describe a responsive mechanism of government, the Nigerian government, to it, especially involving Nigeria?
Currently, what most you do is to evacuate your citizens. Currently, they are doing that, voluntary repatriation. But if you are looking at it, it's just the tip of the iceberg, because the ones are talking about now 100, 150. If we were going to take a proper census of Nigerians or documented Nigerians in South Africa, we'll probably be talking about thousands, if not millions. Thousands, good thousands, not a few thousands. So if you are making voluntary repatriation available to the 100 persons, 200, well, the gesture is appreciated, but the impact will be negligible. It will negate the
Which now calls for more action than that, and that means they need to step up their responsive mechanism. What do you think government needs to do? Of course, you've heard that Senate has reacted. The House of Reps has reacted. It's always a reactive, not proactive. A lot of times you say we should not just be reactive. We should be proactive.
Our ultimate preparation or action is to make our home. We have agreed on that. Make our home inhabitable, hospitable, whatever, comfortable. Because this is actually what is going on. They call it economic migration or whatever migration. It's actually exile. You know, for us in Benin, for instance, culturally, to go on exile is more of a cost. Yes, because we call ourselves the center of the world.
Okay.
Yes. And though we pray for those the Benin people at home and those abroad, what we call them people in diaspora now, whatever that will mean, we are supposed to be home. Home is actually where you guarantee your own security, your prosperity, and so on. Most of the things you need should be home.
But human being is a social being, you understand? People might begin to argue that you cannot be stereotyped into just that Benin culture, that you also need to so much so that other culture
you live in droves.
Culture living in droves, of course, something, because we already discussed the environment, not being maybe hospitable or whatever, that's the reason people are living in droves. I just wanted to so Doc, let's looking at this social media of a thing. Do you think this social media is also helping to hype and aggravate and spike this issue of xenophobia?
Yes. Not just xenophobia, other things. You see, before the widespread use of social media, your own kind of media had filters on things.
Okay.
Even today, it's not everything you broadcast, no matter how true it is. You have to look at the potential it has on society,
sensitivity,
the stability, whatever, you have to look at all that. It's something not that it is true. But for social media, you don't have any editor. There is no gatekeeping.
Netisms.
So, on account of that, what should not be shown to the public
are being broadcasted.
Yes. So that's it. But if you are on the other side of it, we're supposed to be the liberating part of it. What the conventional media will only keep back, censor. Social media, opens the lid on it. That's supposed to be the positive side. But when issues of this kind are going on, where you're supposed to douse things, social media will amplify it, and occasionally magnify.
Because you see some content creators trying to incite youths in Nigeria that if they're killing Nigerians and other African migrants there, that they have also I think that influence, that negative influence.
They don't want to be completely helpless. We just mentioned the senator just now, former governor of our state, what he said on the Senate floor. It can't be more serious than that. When a senator, an eminent citizen amongst the 103 says that.
But is that the best thing to do? Are you not considering, dialogue or this bilateral relationship, coming together to sort it out, instead of, taking it out and say people can react, or you can reprisal attacks?
People can speak out of desperation, people can speak out of frustration or desperation, we are saying it's actually for the governments really, but for us the primary onus is to make Nigeria attractive to Nigerians.
I did hear somebody say that these people that are talking, people coming out to say one thing in Nigeria, that considering the political times, it's a sort of way to like draw people to them and be able to gather what they need to do, because they themselves are equally vying for one position or the other. So you see them coming to talk. Do you see this political linkage between what is happening?
Well, we were saying a while ago whether we are responsible or not. It's an issue. You see, politics at its best is supposed to sift issues of importance to society, whether long range or immediate. You know, it is true that some people who are mischievous can actually take opportunity to recruit any issue for political agitation and so on. But basically, that's how you set agenda. If Nigerians are being killed in South Africa currently, any serious-minded Nigerian politician, especially of national outlook, should table that. Especially if you are a lawmaker and so on, you should be encouraging the executive government, the executive arm of government, especially the Ministry of External Affairs, to take action. You know, to urge the South African government to do whatever is necessary to keep Nigerians safe and so on and so forth.
Okay, but Doc, you talked about making Nigeria, you know, attractive
to Nigerians.
To now reduce
as
that.
It used to be.
Yes, that will now reduce that exodus, you know, of people, you know, leaving Nigeria. So, how do you see it? You know, maybe the lawmakers, you know, making law, trying to sit down and say, what do we do to make Nigeria more attractive, instead of just, you know, taking it out or trying to, like, no matter how the person or the group of people feels about what is happening. Is it not the time to begin to, you know, look at, you know, the policies and programs of the government that will make the society or the environment, you know, rosy and attractive for people not to.
It's not just for now. It's not for the future. It's a perennial issue.
Okay, it's not something that can be done.
It's a thing that should happen every day. It's a thing that should happen every day. You see, you will not believe this. I don't know whether you saw it, but I saw part of it. You know that there was a time people from other parts of the world came to Nigeria in droves. Most of our secondary schools, not talk about universities, you had expatriates all over.
I think I grew up to learn to know about.
Yes, I saw expatriates on let me not say the university I attended, on our campuses. They were there, different nationalities, Britons, Americans.
Federal University.
Of course, state universities are relatively new.
Okay.
Most of them came in the 80s. That was a recent thing. Secondary schools, you had the missionary schools, you had Americans, you had Britons, you had people from other parts of Europe. Then later you had Pakistanis, you had Indians, usually teaching and giving instruction in science subjects and so on. Because you may not believe that, but it is true. People who are old enough, people of my generation saw that when 75 kobo exchanged for $1. I don't think we talk about the kobo anymore now. We don't talk about the kobo. We don't talk about the kobo.
100 naira. We don't talk.
So it is possible. It is possible to restore Nigeria to its time of glory. Quite possible. You see, in those days, it actually. How do we get people to fill our vacancies?
That was the issue then.
Yes, because again, we're talking about issue of demand and supply now. Because the planning was good, you were able to anticipate. You had corporate entities who were out recruiting management trainees, young graduates usually, because most people were up to 2-3 years old as graduates. You couldn't recruit them anymore, they were fixed. So you had scouts who went looking for where they were holding final year examinations on campuses to attract young people who were writing final exams.
Well, we seem to see a different case now. So Nigerians are going to. So where did you? Not because we really have a lot to do, and we are looking at this issue of xenophobic here, and we are talking like how they talk it. People are calling for measures to be taken to address the situation currently. And like yesterday, the Senate sat the House of Reps sat, and they did say, Senate said there should be people should be prosecuted and perpetrators punished. That's for Senate. And the House of Reps is saying we should seize business permit of South Africans coming to Nigeria, and they also look into bilateral ties between the two countries. When looking at these measures, Doctor, are they just, is it something that we keep running here by year when we keep having these things, or are there ways they can equally look into this issue of xenophobic attack to ensuring that at least to an extent it doesn't spring up so suddenly in the country?
See, I do know, well, it's well established rather that nations cannot be taken on the scale of individuals. But in those days, before this time, well, it's still outside GRA. Most houses are not fenced.
Okay.
Now, if a particular family lived in house A and there was another family in house B, now there is no demarcation between these two plots, these two families, and the children of house B have become a nuisance to children of house B. They are always in compound B. What would the owner of compound B do? He will say, come on, get your children out of this place. But on a good day, the children play, they interact. But when they now sort of invade the interior of the house and basic things are stolen, whenever the children come over, we are looking for basic utensils in the house, you don't find. You probably will be looking for money to even erect a fence.
And so that means the fence will be a permanent solution.
Well, at that individual level. So at this stage, most Nigerians who are in South Africa are undocumented. Now we're talking about fundamental solutions. Why do they go to South Africa?
Yes, to start with.
Why do they leave Nigeria? So all the other things we're talking about, persuade or punish or this, that are generally cosmetic.
How would you even push factor? How would you even go about the perpetrators? Because they are not in the confines of your country and all that. It will need another way. So by way of your closing thoughts, Doctor, looking at the whole experience, what would you say? What are your closing thoughts?
Well, my closing thoughts would be that it will be kind of appeal to South Africans to remember the solidarity that has always existed between Nigeria and South Africa. In their dark days, Nigeria made a lot of investment in the well-being, the liberation of South Africa, so much so that Nigeria was granted the status of a frontline state. If history is being taught in South Africa, the history should be well served for young people who have no active memory of those days to know what Nigerians have done for them. So maybe that will help to be tolerant. Then of course Nigerians who are there, who are engaged in legitimate activities, they could regularize their papers, their status. But for those who do illegal things and so on, just like we bemoan their presence in Nigeria, we also bemoan their presence in South Africa. They should be treated according to law, and they should not be made to be victims of jungle justice.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Yes, like he said in the article, I listened to the president. He said people coming into the country should respect the law of the land wherever you are. It's not just as South Africa, Nigeria, anywhere. When you are living there as a migrant, you need to live in with the dictates of the law, and that's how it has been on this program. Thank you so much, Dr. Sararo, for coming to share your thoughts on this program. This is the way we wrap it up, and we look forward to having you join us for another edition next week. Until then, do have a wonderful day.